Welcome to today's Jolene's Book and Writers Talk podcast. Our guest today is Jenny Dearinger. She's a children's book author and illustrator. Her books are mainly for the 1 to 8-year-old or 9-year-old set. She's a former elementary school teacher. All of her books have messages. She is also a jewelry designer. She likes to take stones that she finds or purchases and hand cut them and wire wrap them into jewelry. Her husband does hand faceting of crystals. We would like to welcome Miss Jenny
Hi,
Dearinger.
I'm Jenny Dearinger. My earlier books I published under Jennifer Peters Dearinger, but it's the same me. I've written 10 children's books. It's a pretty specific genre. And I am also the president of the Writers Alliance of Gainesville, which is quite an honor. It's a good little group.
Okay, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your experience with the Writers Alliance and why you think it's good for writers to join?
I joined in 2017, I think. My mother has been a member since 2010 or so, about the same time that it started. I joined because she was sick and couldn't drive herself and to her meetings. So I joined along. Then I started giving input at her little critique group, the Creative Cronies. Then I started thinking, well, they're not going to like having me around if I don't really join the club. So I joined. I heard many years ago a saying that said that everybody has at least one book inside of them. So then I started thinking, what is my book? What do I want to write? And my husband and I love going to national parks. I think there's close to 200 national parks, many more national monuments and national forests and all of that stuff. That's our bucket list, to hit everything national. Well, of course, the gift shop is a huge part of going to a national park. I have very young grandchildren. Well, my oldest grandchild this year is 12, and the youngest is 17 months. I just keep going to gift shops looking for books for my grandchildren. I wanted things other than, color books or ABC books. I wanted science. And one of my favorite sciences is geology. And there was nothing geared toward preschool children in the area of geology. So I designed my own book. My first book was called A Stone's Crow. And it's about a crow. Part of my specialty of geology is I cut my own stones. It's called lapidary work. I used 10 stones that I really love. And Mr. Crow goes around and collects those and decorates his wife's nest with the beautiful stones.
Lapidary is a little bit more than a hobby then, because you make jewelry with it, right?
I do. I cut my own stones, then wire wrap them either in silver or copper. I'm switching from sterling silver to argentium silver. It's a little bit expensive because it's a higher quality silver. The sterling that we all know is called 925. That's 92.5% silver. That means that it's got 7.5% other metals in it, copper and nickel. Argentium is more like 96% silver. So what happens is it doesn't tarnish like a sterling does. A sterling gets oxidized and it turns kind of yellow or black if you let it get that far. Argentium will tarnish because it still has copper in it, a much lower percentage, so it lasts a lot longer before it needs to be cleaned. I cut rocks that I find out in the grass. I also buy slabbed rocks. They come like 4 inches square with about half an inch thick or less than half an inch thick. I cut those and some gorgeous stones. It's a really fun hobby.
You have 10 books out,
Yes,
and
I
they're
do.
all children's
That's
books.
right. And they're not all about stones either.
Okay, okay. Well, tell us about another one.
I have a book called Rainbow Ballerina, which is a pretty good seller. My granddaughter, when she was about 3 and 4 years old, she was taking ballet classes. Also have another granddaughter, and I asked her what her favorite color was, and her favorite color is rainbow. So I combined the two, the rainbow and the ballerina, and I made a rainbow ballerina. And this is where my critique group came in very handy. I drew several pictures of different rainbow ballerinas. One was like a swan, and it had a a scarf, a rainbow colored scarf around its neck. And one was a mouse and it had like a rainbow tail. And then one was an elephant, and an elephant I put into a tutu. She blew rainbows out of her nose. So that is the one that my group really liked, was Rainbow Ballerina Elephant. What I did was I based it on folk legend about how rainbows get into the sky. There's a whole bunch of different legends about rainbows and, thunderclaps and all of that, but I did my own twist with my little rainbow ballerina, because she jumps into the sky and spreads the rainbow, paints the rainbow with her nose, her trunk, through the sky. And I have a book, a mystery for children that are in the age group of losing their teeth, say 5 through 8. It's called The Tooth Sleuth. And in that one, I have Flossie, the tooth fairy, finds a missing tooth, and she goes around and she tests it in a lot of different animals' mouths. Eventually, she finds who the tooth belongs to. So, of course, you and I know who the tooth belongs to, but it's a mystery for the smaller children. My personal favorite book, the one that I've written that turned out the best for me personally, is called Journey to Mooses. It's a story that's written in the round. It actually ends where it begins, and I go through national parks. It has 10 national parks in it. The Gopher Tortoise in the National Seashore in Florida, in the Pensacola area, gets invited to Moose's birthday party, and Moose says you can bring a friend. She kind of misinterprets it, and she drives a VW Love Bug. I don't know if you remember those. Is through the country, through the United States. So there's my little geology book. Her best friend is Black Bear, and he lives in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in North Carolina. She picks up Black Bear, and then she says, Black Bear, you can bring a friend. So they pick up friends all across the country and end up in Denali National Park. And then while they're having their birthday cake for Moose, he gets a letter, and it says, you are invited to my birthday party. And then the surprise is, how are they going to get to the next birthday party? So it started with a letter being sent to an animal, and it ends with a letter being sent to an animal. So that's the story in the round.
Oh, okay.
So if you're writing for adults, you probably tend to have a lot more conflict than you will in a preschool book. It's a real story, and it does have a story arc. In fact, if I write a concept book like Preposterous Pumpkins, the dedication is to all of the people who think outside of the shell. So that should give you a hint. It's just a concept book about what you can do with a pumpkin. There's nothing dangerous in it. It's not a teaching book like teaching respect, friendship, or anything like that. It's just a concept book about what you can do with a pumpkin. But it still has to have that same story arc of a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has to reach a climax before a conclusion. That's how it would be different than an adult book, but it's still the same.
It still takes time and thought.
That's
and
right.
Put the words together.
Well, and I'm a minimalist writer too. Let's see, a good adult book is probably around 60,000 words or so. Is that about right? Young adult book will be around 20 and 40,000 for a young adult book. A children's book, the publishers nowadays want things that are read really quickly, like 4 to 5 minutes that you can read to a child at bedtime, something like that. They tend to be around 500 words. Well, I definitely try to do less than 500 words in a 26-page book. But I also do a lot of illustrating. So I hope a lot of my ideas, my character plot, character development comes through in the pictures.
Do you have a publisher, like a traditional publisher?
I do not have a traditional publisher. I am an independent published author. I use Amazon program Kindle Direct Publishing, which is pretty easy software to learn to use. Karen Porter, who is a member of the Creative Cronies, a member of the Writers Alliance of Gainesville, has a publishing company, a little indie publisher called Everfield Press. I do occasionally use her moniker Everfield Press on the backs of my books, kind of like out of friendship and solidarity. And sometimes I buy my ISBNs from her through Bowker's. And she likes to publish with Ingram Sparks, which I have tried to publish with, and I think they're going to get better. They better stock of paper recently. The paper doesn't bleed and is supposed to hold color better, because remember, I am an illustrator. I like my lines to be crisp, and Ingram Spark has not been able to do that for me. And their covers on Ingram Spark are very user unfriendly to make. You basically have to have Adobe whatever. I'm not very good at that. It's been troublesome for me. There is a book that I haven't touched on, and that's my most recent publication, which I published in July of 2022. Excuse me, it's 2023 right now. I have a couple more books in the pipeline for 2023, but this book is called Together We Are Fierce. It's very minimalist and it's very repetitive, because part of the things that you want to teach children is cadence. Even a 3-year-old can pretend to be reading something if their parents have read it to them often enough that they get down the sequence, and they can pretend to be reading, and that's teaching them how to read. I have a friend who's a personal coach, a life coach. She basically concentrates on individuals trying to raise their self-esteem, their self-worth, so that they can make more money. That's the way that she works. But changed it up a little bit. I started with 3 individual children representing groups that are not often portrayed in children's books. I have a Black boy, an Asian girl, and a little white girl with a disability. Some people may say that, well, you don't have those problems, so you shouldn't be writing about those problems, or not necessarily problems. You don't have that ethnicity. Yeah, I meant problems when I was talking about the little girl with a disability. But
diversity
yeah.
Looking for.
Diversity is what I'm talking about. The point of my story is to show that no matter who you are or where you come from, your ethnicity or color or gender, I wanted to show that we all have the same dreams. And if anything is common between everybody, it's that we as children are unlimited in our imaginations. And I wanted to show that. And then I took that idea of the individual dreamer, wanted to show how if we work together, if we unify, we can make our dreams as societies come true. So hopefully that will come across in the book. And the book is up for the Royal Palm Literary Award for Children's Picture Book. It's a semifinalist right now, Florida Writers Association.
This question I've asked of all the authors so far. Do you have an opinion about AI taking over the writers and illustrators' jobs?
I am struck with fear every time I think about AI. I guess that's an opinion right there. It's just like paralyzing. I have no idea. It's worse than the Wild West. As far as I'm concerned, there's no regulation out there. It doesn't matter what you write is copyrighted or not. AI can take it and they don't have to cite any material. Your creativity has been stolen and you're not going to get reimbursed at all for that. I thought about maybe writing the word copyright on every page of material that I put out, but that's not going to stop AI. In fact, I talked to someone at UF, grades papers, a teacher and a professor, excuse me, and she said that even the University of Florida is going to be coming up with standards. One of the big things that they can tell about AI is that it does not cite the sources. They can definitely require that of all of the work, so that they can tell what is written by the student and what is written by an AI.
The best thing that I've found for it is that it helps me organize my thoughts into a nice outline, which I am awful at. But it gives me points to remember to add into the story if I get too far off. When the characters start taking over your writing, you have to pull yourself back.
Right. I think I was talking about the character. You asked a question in the written work. Art Crummer, a member of the Writers Alliance of Gainesville, has written an absolutely marvelous song about the meta character. I think it was something about a cat got stuck up in the tree, and then he was going to climb up and get the cat down, but the cat said no. I don't remember exactly how it went, but I mean, his characters started talking back to him. So they really do develop their own personalities.
Yes, they have a tendency to do that and
Uh-huh.
want
Uh-huh.
to go their own way, and part of the fun to me. And I don't think that an AI is ever going to, at least I hope not, be able to let the characters develop themselves. Something that you would never think of, but your
Right.
muse inside your head is saying, hey, I want to go this way. I want to do this.
Mhm.
I said,
Yeah.
okay, well, let's see what it does. Said you had some stuff in the pipeline. Would you like to talk about
Yes.
that?
Let me talk about social emotional learning, SEL. It's really, really important in the age groups that I write for, which is teaching children behavior, how to behave with each other in the classroom and on the playground, and when they grow up in the office, in the grocery store, everywhere is socialization, how to express yourself, and what different techniques can be to overcome negative feelings. So the book I wrote with Carrie Johnson Warren Parker is called Spotted Fish and Striped Fish, and I'm changing the title because I've written a sequel. Spotted Fish and Striped Fish Find Treasure is going to be the first book. That's the book that I wrote with her. And that one is about friendship. It goes deeper than that. It's about reciprocation and the golden rule: do unto others as you want them to do unto you, which is reciprocation. It gives children some tools to handle different situations where you might feel slighted. And the interesting thing about that book is that it did get a 1-star review on Amazon. And I'm not even sure that the lady even read it or if she just read the blurb about it. Sometimes you can't tell, but she sided with one of the fish. So she had some negative feelings. I struck a nerve, and I feel pretty good about that. Of course, in the beginning, it hurt my feelings, and I wanted to explain myself to her, but I don't think that's the way to go. I'm just going to take it as somebody read something on me. So that's good. The second book that I'm working on for that one is called Spotted Fish and Striped Fish Join Clubs. And that book is going to be about conflict resolution, and it's going to give some tools. And one of the big things about conflict resolution at that age level, even in the law for older adults like myself, we have arbitration. Even children should always go to an adult or to a teacher when they have conflict. The adult is the party that's supposed to help them learn to resolve issues. And that's one of the things. Normally in children's books, you gear the whole book to the child figuring out and solving the problem, because even in adult books, you want someone of that age to figure out the problem or solve the mystery or whatever. In this case, I'm trying to teach conflict resolution, and I do have the school teacher as a prominent figure within the arbitration in this case. Which club to join. In the other book, I was talking about Carrie Parker a little bit ago. Carrie was the vice principal, and she retired from PK Young, which is our University of Florida research teaching school. So she is pretty well known in her group. And one of the people that she introduced me to, his name is Mr. Wayne Fields. He is part of the small business community here in Gainesville, and he's a former University of Florida football player who went on to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He had a very short-lived career there, but he was a Pittsburgh Steeler. He teaches at the Caring and Sharing Learning School, which is one of our charter schools here in Gainesville. He has a lot of information that he would like to pass on to children, behavioral information, things that he's learned from playing football. And my characters for him are, again, they're in the fish community. I like fish because I could draw fish. Children a bit harder, but I have learned how to draw children. The book that I'm working with him right now is called Respect, but I imagine that this is going to turn into a series where all of the information, the different tools that he learned to cope with from the football field, we can transfer into the classroom, like working together as a team kind of thing. So those are the two books I'm working on, and hopefully I'll get them done before the next Sunshine State Book Festival.
That's good. I wish you luck. The next thing I wanted to talk about and bring into prominence, I think, about the Sunshine State Book Festival last year is you had an essay contest for students.
Yes.
And this year you wanted to do the same.
Yes,
Let's talk.
it is. It's very important to me that I use my platform as the president of the Writers Alliance to forward literacy within our own community, which is the Writers Alliance of Gainesville. So we're primarily Alachua County and Marion County, call it North Central Florida area. But literacy is very important to me. I think the statistics say that most of our incarcerated individuals can't read past the third grade level. So we're looking at maybe 90% being illiterates being incarcerated, or 90% of incarcerated people are illiterate. I just feel like it must be so hard to be in a world where you can't read the signs, you can't pass a driver's test. Your self-esteem goes down the toilet if you can't do any of that stuff. You have emotional problems that are attached. And then because you have emotional problems, then you're self-medicating. That's a huge problem. I just feel like it starts from not being able to read, and then you self-medicate, and then you get into big trouble. If we could just catch those people, it would be so beneficial to the greater society. I have an essay contest. Last year it was just high school students, and this year it's middle school and high school students. Last year's question had to do with a program that we had at the Sunshine State Book Festival, which was on building sci-fi and fantasy worlds. But this year, my platform is mind-blowing books. That's what I'm titling it. Mind-blowing books. But the question is, have you read a book that has changed the way that you see the world? Just about every book that I pick up, it has something to impart to me. It could change you just a little bit, but it's going to change your perspective somehow. So that's what I'm trying to do, is just get kids to think about the world around them, get off the video games kind of stuff. Last year we had Steve Spurrier's HBC Foundation was sponsored the contest, and I haven't heard from them this year, but I'm hoping that they or the Chamber of Commerce, Greater Gainesville, somebody will sponsor the contest. We'll be able to give a monetary scholarship along with to the people that come in top on this essay contest. But I hope we have lots of participants. That'll be fun. I've lowered the word count this year too to 500 words or less, so that it's not going to take up much time for people to write their essays.
So have you sent out the notice to all the Board of Educations in the surrounding county?
Right now I'm getting it approved by the SBAC, the School Board of Alachua County, and after they approve it, then I will send it out to all of our surrounding counties. Last year I sent it out to all 64 of the counties in Florida. 84, 64, something like that.
67.
And 67, I got one person from the Pensacola area even came to our contest. The awards are going to be given on January 26th in the evening. We're going to have the reception for the authors and the sponsors at the Hilton. And then on the 27th, which is the date of the Sunshine State Book Festival, January 27th, all of the winners will be invited to read at the festival. There will be 200 authors. At this point, we've already sold halfway out, so that's good. It'll be at the University of Florida Hilton, or the Hilton University of Florida Convention Center, and there are also a block of rooms for out-of-town authors to stay there. We have already contracted with the hotel. It will be providing breakfast and lunch for the authors. It's only $50 to come in and be a vendor, an author vendor at this and you get free food. It should be a lot of, I'm expecting a lot of traffic this year, it being right there on 34th. We just have to advertise correctly.
Now, I wanted to ask you about the banned books first. I think banned books are silly. I think it's a silly thing to do. And as a children's author, I know that you have to be very careful about what you write about and how you write it. What do you think about the banned books? Is it a ploy? Is it a way to stir people up? Valid?
Well, I have mixed feelings about it personally. It depends on what you're talking about. Not that it's going to happen, but if a first grader is very precocious and can read really at an 8th grade level or so, should he be reading Catcher in the Rye? I don't know. He shouldn't be reading about suicide at that age. If your child came home with a book that you didn't like, all you have to do is take it away from the child. The child's not going to read it. You don't have to make a big deal out of it.
And just
So,
because it's not for you doesn't mean that.
right. Just because it's not for you. And maybe there are parents out there that feel completely differently about Catcher in the Rye, but I've not run into a first grader that's going to be reading that. Even if they had access to it, it doesn't have any pictures in it. It's not going to
That's
appeal.
right.
I think it's about perspective. The people who want banned books are losing perspective. As far as like the LGBTQ plus community, I think everybody has a right to be seen and heard, and I think I have a right to write about it if I want to. I think that I have a right to write about a lot of things, including, I need to be an American Indian to empathize with some of the plights that American Indians are going through. I think that the left gets carried away and the right gets carried away. So that's where my mixed feelings are. I do have a friend who teaches high school English. I think that if she's not allowed to expose her children to controversial ideas such as suicide, the children won't learn. That's how we learn. We make decisions based on the things that we learn, and you shouldn't deprive a high school student of an opportunity to learn, or any student.
The Black history that
Oh
the
my gosh, yeah.
says we're not allowed to teach.
That's ridiculous. History is history. It's you can't change it, although it is up to the archivists to make sure that the history keeps going, that we still learn from it. Every generation will change it, just tweak it a little bit, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be exposed to the history because that's how we learn. We have to learn from our mistakes. You can't recreate the wheel every time you go out to make a new decision.
Is there anything else you would like to say about the Sunshine State Book Festival? Do you have a keynote speaker already? Authors coming up and doing readings, or are you going to do actual workshops this year?
This is geared toward the public. There's not an education opportunity for the writers to get out of their booths to go to a class. We're planning on having panel discussion, and I think one of the panel discussions will be banned books, and I'm hoping that the other one will be on AI. So you've touched on both of those today. Those are two really button issues right now, though.
Anything else you would like to tell up and coming children writers about writing in today's world?
Well, that's really interesting. I think just about everybody I meet has a story that they want to tell. I think that you do have to be really careful about sticking to a child's experience. You don't want to introduce hard concepts like death or divorce, anything really sad, and you only have 500 words to do it. So you have to have a very short arc. If you haven't gone to school for education or writing for children, then I suggest you do a lot of studying. You go spend your days at the library in the children's section. Every time you go to the bookstore, you go straight to the children's section and flip through all what's selling right now. So that's the wisdom that I would like to impart, is do your research and stick to themes that are child-oriented without being too scary. It's hard to write about war or death, or even the death of your dog might not be the best story. So if you have an idea for a children's book that has to do with death, then you need to really round it out and make it as positive as possible. But basically, you should start with something happy.